Hey guys, Kevin Cage back with another cryptocurrency update. Be sure to watch until the end of this video and let's get right into it. Again, none of this is financial advice. Always do your own research. And for a little mental exercise, I want you guys, any people that have even a little doubt with some of the information I'm sharing, that is completely fine. I want you to take anything that you are unsure about or, think I'm exaggerating or anything like that. Take that, go vet it, and call me out with any of this information, all right? Because obviously there's some speculation. But when you are looking at the fundamentals of this asset class, of what some of these companies are building, I think you will be very, very impressed and surprised on how far they've actually come and how much they're really working on. Again, when we're looking at price, we might not see what is being developed. This is a Ripple document. This was deleted. And again, Mickey B. Fresh has this crazy thread he tagged me in. So thank you, sir, for sharing this information. And again, it is absolutely wild. Now, some of the things may not apply specifically. Some were maybe old, like kind of the terms like Ripple Connect and some of the gateways. I absolutely get that. But I want to show you what they're working on in the past. And then I want you to pay attention to what former CFTC chairman Christopher Giancarlo, and again, he is an advisor on Ripple now, is saying. So we're going to kind of start it off by showing this clip, and I'll just give you a little commentary here. Please, if you've already seen it, go ahead and fast forward 2 minutes, but I think it's pretty evident what he says here, all right?
Our proposal.
So start here. Got to make sure the volume's so different every time on every Twitter clip.
Giving them a standard set.
And by the way, just to preface this, he is working again with the Digital Dollar Project, all right, helping again the United States go digital with their central bank digital currency. Funny enough, obviously the lead architect for this project, one of them is Accenture. Accenture is one of Ripple's first investors. Accenture is also involved with obviously the software and digital transformation for DLT specifically. They're a huge group, but for DLT specifically, they help with Swift, Ripple, in R3 and many other groups. All right. So you can say Accenture obviously wants Ripple to succeed as one of their first investors from early days. We're talking, well over 5 years ago. Just something to consider. All right.
Of technological protocols to use. So in short, our proposals, I think, is a quite simple one. And that is that there be a independent enterprise. Now, it can be a quasi-governmental. There's certainly a role for strict standards and government role in this. But having been in the government, knowing how difficult it is to actually do technological innovation in government, being a representative of government that couldn't build a medical website, and after 3 tries eventually went to the private sector to get it done. This has really got to be built, if it's going to be built on time and it's got to be built with private sector involvement.
And as we know, Ripple is an example of private sector. So is R3 and many other groups. All right. Now keep in mind, he has many NDAs he cannot discuss, and he cannot just say, XRP, for example. Obviously, there's a vested interest from him as well, but just keep listening.
On time and it's got to be built with private sector involvement. But that entity would make those standard protocols available to the entire existing financial ecosystem.
Interesting. Now, he also is going to talk about this, making all these protocols, able to enable and be agnostic. Well, what has Ripple developed? Well, Interledger Protocol. Again, it doesn't matter what type of cryptocurrency, what type of digital value you send. It bridges all ledgers, traditional and the new asset class. All right. We have Hyperledger developing that. We have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation working with Interledger as well. Some things just kind of, make you go, all right. Now, we've talked about Tata, Finastra, every single technology provider. Obviously, I think it's pretty evident if you've done your research for maybe 2 to 3 years. I'd assume that's the majority of you guys here. But again, there are newcomers on this channel, so I'm sure some of this is kind of going over their heads. But again, in due time.
Entity would make those standard protocols available to the entire existing entity would.
And again, we just talked about Vega and the Vega protocol with the decentralized exchanges and liquidities and kind of financial programs, all right? Incentivizing all of this. Again, that's another type of Spring investment. What are they doing? What is Spring doing? Well, they're enabling not only the XRP ecosystem to expand, obviously with that $500 million investment from Ripple, but they're trying to create this level playing field narrative. Again, only the best protocols will win. If some group like Facebook with Libra, which is nothing more than just a fancy database in IOUs, it's not even a cryptocurrency in my opinion. If it had to force its way into the marketplace, it's because it would not win on a level playing field if companies and businesses and people simply just wanted to choose the best asset for that specific use case. Now, XRP, Chainlink, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, VeChain, not one asset is going to solve every single problem. There's so much value. There's so many clunky issues in friction, in payments, tracking, decentralized oracles, and actual getting legitimate information. Yes, there's going to be more than one winner. Obviously, there's going to be hundreds, and there's going to be many, many successful projects. But guess what? 5,000 plus cryptocurrencies in the asset, or even on CoinMarketCap today, again, was acquired by Binance for roughly $400 million. These companies are not making these massive moves for fun. This is not a tulip bubble. This asset class is here to stay. Now, how early are we? We cannot really tell, but judging by the pandemic, by global and geopolitical tensions occurring with BRICS, so straying away from SWIFT, I think you can assume that we are relatively close, and there are many catalysts.
Make those standard protocols available to the entire existing financial ecosystem, to banks, payment providers, and others, standard set of protocols.
And again, RippleNet could be a standard set of protocols, as was, even before, a little bit after OpenCoin. Ripple kind of just stood for the software, all right? They're an enabler.
And an ecosystem, to banks, payment providers, and others, standard set of protocols. And it would not be in the business of collecting data. It would be in the business of developing technology only. The relationships that people would have with their providers would be their existing relationships today, but who knows what new entrants to come. And it would work through the existing regulated system.
And again, as we've heard from Michelle Bond, Monica Long of Ripple, Ripple is directly regulated because every single one of their customers is directly regulated, all right? Working within investing in the existing infrastructure.
Bank regulated systems. So bank regulated enterprises, other regulated enterprises. So a very simple concept to create.
All right. Now, again, this document, this is old from 2015, as we can see here, executive summary for FIs, financial institutions, internet protocol for, and again, just an internetworking protocol for interbank payments, Ripple. Now, this was deleted. And again, Mickey B. Fresh sharing the link as well. And all I really want to show you, you guys get the gist. If you want to screenshot this, if you're a newcomer to understand the benefits, if you even do a little research into the existing correspondent banking network, the number of intermediaries, the number of correspondence that you have to go through, the clunkiness. There's not a single format of not even messaging. Now, payments obviously can kind of be seen as a very different thing than settlement. With DLT, there's going to be multiple points, so not a central point of systemic failure. There's resiliency and redundancy on the system. There's, it's a lot more secure, especially with a finite amount of tokens such as XRP. All right, so we understand, 5 seconds to settle rather than 2+ days, domestic use cases. And the cool thing is, back in 2015, they were even showing proof of domestic utility for XRP. Today, many people do not think that XRP will solve any type of domestic use case. They think that cross-border international payments has to be first. And then if, liquidity and tighter spreads are prove successful, then they can have a domestic use case. But domestically speaking, 24/7, 365, even between other walled garden ecosystems, can still show a point. Now, right here, what is Ripple? Well, guys, again, we're not saying XRP, we're just simply showing a Ripple. Again, this type of protocol, this software suite, and of course, on-demand liquidity specifically has the option to use XRP. So Ripple is the basic infrastructure technology for interbank transactions, a neutral utility for financial institutions and systems. So we have the application layer. This is just a giant payment stack per se. We have messaging. Again, that's not XRP's use case. XRP is the foundation, the foundational layer of a payment system. So this payment stack, we can see settlement and infrastructure. That's Ripple. So again, I do believe, provided, fun facts like Ripple owning 8 to 10% of the stake of MoneyGram, of being connected to not only 350 to 400 direct customers, but you can argue, well over 10,000 if you talk about some of the groups we talk about in every single channel. Just watch my previous video. We kind of went over some of those numbers in the past, 450 plus videos again. Right here, talking about 24/7, 365 connectivity between banks. There's a lot going on in terms of NDAs, kind of just talking about sending, value as simple as email. Obviously, Pay ID and this global open payments coalition is another type of adjustment for that. Just something to keep in mind, guys. This is absolutely massive, and just a little more backing. So we know 2004, way before Bitcoin, we had Ripple Pay with, again, Ryan Fugger developing all of this and this type of decentralized digital monetary system. This is on XRParcade.com again for this Ripple timeline, and I'm sure he'll continuously be adding to it. And then right here, 2012, it was OpenCoin. Even before the XRP ledger went live, okay, in 2012. So, and again, XRP was actually created right here, as you can see, Arthur Brito, the man, the myth, the legend, complete ghost. But right here, OpenCoin, Chris Larsen, obviously successful from Elon, Prosper, a few other companies early on, Jed McCaleb. And OpenCoin began development of the Ripple protocol, RTXP, and the Ripple Payment and Exchange Network. Well, who invested in OpenCoin? Let's kind of see these groups. Obviously, we know Andreessen Horowitz with Chris Dixon, and these huge behemoths as well. And of course, they rebalance their portfolios, but you want to know who has initial backing of these companies. Well, even on CoinDesk right now, and I know I show this a lot, we talked about this again. So Chris Larsen co-founded, Elon, P2P Marketplace, Prosper, all of these groups, talking about Jed McCaleb as well. And right here, there's this money from OpenCoin. So we, Andreessen Horowitz, no surprise, Ben Horowitz, Lightspeed Venture Partners, and the Founders Fund, whose partners include, guess who? PayPal founder Peter Thiel. Again, and if you've watched a lot of videos on him, I've read, books by him like 0 to 1, for example. He was one of the first big investors of Facebook. He is on the board for Facebook as well. And he's even discussed open payment systems and kind of was just talking about how complex all of it is, right? And even Ripple has said this. Imagine coming into the space, you're building Twitter, but you also have to kind of build the internet. I'm not sure if I butchered that analogy that David Schwartz says. I basically just digest way too much information on a daily basis, so I'm far from perfect, guys. Hopefully you enjoy my stuttering as well. All right, so again, we have Peter Thiel backing this, the PayPal Mafia. You can obviously trace that back as well, which I like to reference to. All right, and now right here, before we continue Mickey B. Fresh's thread, we have Roth Economist. So we know that Ripple is getting into lending. Well, everyone seemed to be so surprised when it was announced, but if you go back to even Miguel Valles talking in 2016, 2017, he was formerly head of XRP, liquidity and markets and institutional markets, I believe. He even said, when we started, it wasn't that clear of where to start. Do we start with lending? Do we just work on OTC? Do we go and try to get XRP listed as many places as possible? It was kind of tricky, but obviously lending was in their mind right from the get-go. If you looked at even RippleNet Home creating this other network for their banks and their intra-network, it really does get interesting. Now again, lending, well, you obviously imagine that there's interest involved. Well, when you're paying interest and it's via XRP, it's also creating additional demand. Interesting. So right here, even Roth Economist, given it is only for RippleNet customers, I would imagine it's for, it is XRP loans for payments on RippleNet, not a move into banking. And right now, I do agree, but again, time will tell. So Ripple's officially moving into loans for RippleNet. However, Ripple is expanding in the loans. The new position will report into the VP of Product Management, who recently joined from Google. Interesting. All right, now back to this thread. This is going to be a kind of a long video, so I apologize, guys. All right. So, Ripple was engaging with central banks about issuing central bank digital currencies on the XRP ledger back in 2015. Now, I know we've talked about this before, should be no surprise. And right here's the deleted PDF. And again, it was kind of just what I was going through, but again, he highlighted everything. And I think I heard digital asset investor people say this, but you can tell Mickey B. Fresh, he's a bright guy, and just see how his mind works, highlighting and coloring everything. Really, really appreciate it. And he does have a YouTube channel as well. I believe you can just type in Mickey B. Fresh, XRP, Ripple, something like that, and you should be able to find it. So definitely show him some support. All right, so RippleNet has just replaced the gateway, same thing. So a few things I want to kind of go through. Central banks can use Ripple, and again, just meaning the overall protocol, as we can see here, kind of that foundational layer of the payment stack, all right? So we want settlements of the core ledgers of these central banks. Finality, immutability, not trying to, rebalance and net between all these other groups. Can use Ripple to issue central bank money to authorized commercial banks. Well, similarly to, the XRP ledger, or to interledger protocol. XRPL, the ledger itself, and I know XRP is the native asset on it, and it's the fastest way to send, you can actually issue IOUs on top of it. There's so many benefits. People think that XRP is it. No, far from it. You have to look at these other groups that are even building. It's not even just Ripple. You can look at, Hyperledger as well, with even Ethereum and collateralized ERC20 tokens. I think there's going to be a lot of successful projects, and people are not paying attention to that. They are lost on maybe Bitcoin is the only one, and it's kind of that maximalist standpoint. And there's going to be many winners. Now, I wish Bitcoin well. I just am more so looking at true utility. And if Bitcoin can do something better than XRP can, I'm a lot more open to it. Same with any other digital asset. But again, each one has its kind of own perceived strengths. So we're waiting for price discovery, lower barriers to entry. You get the gist. All right, so authorized commercial banks. We'll keep going. Network members, banks, and financial services businesses. As you can see, Ripple is designed to be used directly by interbank, not intrabank. Again, this is an open landscape of network members and operators, and by liquidity providers. Now keep in mind that burn rate of XRP, of course, on the XRP ledger prevents spam, but the way it works is when XRP is burned, and it's a very minute amount, I don't really think it's ever going to affect price like we want, because there's going to be so many other things that drive price up, in my opinion. But when it's burning, it's statistically, barely making those the market makers, I should say, more profitable over time, incentivizing them to do so. And again, we'll talk about that with Vega, unless I get tired of hearing my own voice. So again, we see central banks and regulators, liquidity providers right here in the center between the two networks of members. Network members, banks, we've already talked about this, can use Ripple to provide their customers with new payments capabilities, with existing capabilities at a lower cost. Keep going. Again, what are the use cases? Well, they can clear and settle transactions for low value. All right, we already know that, and that's been on-demand liquidity's goal from the start. Low value, high volume. And now we see even high value payments, and that is what I'm waiting for. When you have high value or high volume, and then that higher value transaction going over the ledger, that is how within order books it is eating up that value and driving the price up, specifically if it's consistent. All right, that is how price goes up. Currency, securities, commodities, any value on the XRP ledger. Today, the predominant use cases are for real-time currency payments. Real-time domestic settlement, now it's talking about domestically without a central counterparty. So with Ripple, central banks can enable banks to clear and settle transactions bilaterally, as we know, lowering the costs and risks, okay? A central bank can test Ripple by using Ripple's clearing capabilities, but still settling net positions via a real-time gross settlement system. Now, well, the funny thing is this, guys. It's not just us hoping and talking about central banks testing Ripple. That's already been done by many, many banks. And if it's not directly RippleNet and XRP, it's Interledger Protocol, period. And again, Interledger Protocol was created by Ripple and Christopher Giancarlo, advisor of Ripple and leading one of the leads for the Digital Dollar Project and former CFTC chairman as well, highly connected, is pushing all of this and saying that the government will team up and needs help with the private sector. As always, governments, they do not innovate. They adopt, period. So obviously, take that with what you will. All right, liquidity providers. So central banks, non-bank market makers, liquidity providers can use Ripple to fund settlement for Ripple transactions. Same currency, central banks, again, network operators. So, we can see central banks covered throughout here. Now again, domestic use case, 24/7, 365. Now can this just be more so clearing and reconciliation? Yes, but if XRP becomes highly liquid and somehow has a benefit due to cold hard math over going between two different systems, if it's a Bank of America coin and a JPM coin, they will need some type of more so agnostic, open sourced token to transfer that value. Is it too crazy to speculate that it would be XRP in between there? Potentially. With ILP, you could just do types of atomic swaps. I'm just saying, the probability or likelihood exists, all right? Thereby lowering costs and risks of high volume and high value payments. Now, cross-border, and that I think is obviously the sweet spot, tackling with ODL corridors. Those high friction corridors are very easy to compete with. And once, XRP liquidity is really starting to grow, as we're seeing, guys, in investment class, as I say in every video now, Mark Cuban even says with asset classes, once it surpasses a $1 billion market cap, it's here to stay. And obviously we're seeing volumes going. We've seen hits sometimes, but the consistency, the use case, nothing's threatened in my opinion. I hope that more competition comes, just like with Tesla. They want competition. They want Ford to create, electric vehicles and trucks to compete with them. Why? Well, because it creates more demand and use cases, and then it's also going to create new suppliers, new, markets for those specific types of vendors. All right? Liquidity, competition, and innovation are kind of one of the same. So cross-border, in addition to the above points, as we say, 24/7, 365, provide cost-efficient foreign exchange and liquidity management capabilities. This is where the issue is today, guys. Rather than 2 to 6 days of sending a payment through this correspondent banking network, specifically with those corridors that don't have direct pairings, they have to go through a few. It's ridiculous. Obviously, US dollar and euro is already highly efficient, but again, we need to work on those other corridors, and potentially could we compete with the US dollar and euro corridor someday? Is that bridge asset? Potentially. So, thereby lowering costs of global reach and real-time payments. Now, it's not only just liquidity and cost of that, it's based on trust. That's a factor of trust. There's a factor of, time, scalability, resiliency, transparency of the messaging, and standardization. Obviously, we know, and we've heard this time and time again, with the shipping container, when there were actual standards to the size of the shipping crates, everything. We're talking about efficiency and production. They improved tenfold. So just something to consider. All right, now we're gonna have Stephen Thomas again. He coded the Bitcoin code from scratch, so he's quite familiar with it. He's former CTO of Ripple, and now he is with Coil as well. So just listen to this. I'm gonna adjust this volume because it's killing me over here.
One thing that has evolved into is who are the best gateways? They are banks, and even better, the central bank, right?
So he just said that central banks and banks are the best gateways, all right?
Central bank is the ideal gateway, right? Because banks, and even better, the central bank, right? So central bank is the ideal gateway, right? Because
interesting. All right. Next, so RippleNet, talking about gateways again. This mechanism is called RippleNet. Remember, RippleNet and Global Payment Steering Group are the same thing. Well, again, was it the president of the Global Payment Steering Group, aka RippleNet, was the former president of the DTCC. I think you guys know they essentially send, more money than any group in the world, right? And that was why am I blanking? What's his first name? Something Donahue. Check it out yourselves, guys. All right. So, Ripple Gateways explained, private exchange holds XRP and lets its customers buy and sell that XRP in its own system. Most cryptocurrencies rely on private exchanges to provide a market for cryptocurrency, for the crypto. But the Ripple Consensus Ledger has a currency exchange built into the protocol itself. And yes, I know we've talked about that before. Provide a way for money and other forms of value to move in and out of the Ripple Consensus Ledger. There are 3 major models that gateways can follow. All right, issuing gateway, private exchange, merchants. All right, this highly strategic product for Ripple. Now, this is recent news, and he's tying it back together some of this old news as well. So pay attention to this. And I did think this was interesting. So for XRP, obviously, scalability of the asset, we're looking for an engineering manager, again, a new position, to lead and shape the team responsible for ODL, on-demand liquidity, which literally uses XRP for settlement on an institutional type of interbank level. And we are live today. They're sending well over $1 billion per year in XRP transactions. Just something to note for any newcomers. All right, customer experience, integration into our next generation trading platform. I'm curious what they're working on, and be a critical part of defining the future trajectory of on-demand liquidity and RippleNet. All right, and then right here, in ecology of monies, Ripple's distributed exchange is an electronic calculator. All right, but on scale he could never have imagined. This quote retrieved from Ripple's archived website shows that the XRP ledger promised an ostensibly, never really seen that word before, neutral medium, the calculator to provide interoperability, universal translation between apparently incompatible political designs of money. Interesting. Now I'm going to read some very, very bullish quotes below. Just pay attention really quick to this. So again, this is OpenCoin, as we showed back in 2012. And remember, even Peter Thiel of, co-founder, kind of CEO founder of PayPal, invested in this as well. Right here, the Ripple payment system will help redefine society well beyond our lifetimes. We're building the most important piece of software that the world has ever seen. That's a bold statement. I'll just leave it at, at that. You guys are going to call that hype. I just wanted to share with you, some early on statements. All right. Now, right here, we have David Treat, Year of Blockchain at Accenture and co-lead of Digital Dollar Project. So this interview was literally from like the last week of June or early on in July, like within days ago. Now, Accenture, as we said, and I believe I said this at the beginning of the video, and I feel like I say it in every video, but Accenture, they've been working with Ripple since 2014, an investor in Ripple as well. So you could say, obviously, Ripple derives a lot of its valuation from XRP and its utility in the future, especially as XRP, if and when it appreciates, that helps them big time. I'd assume that would help Accenture as well. Do they have vested interests? You decide for yourselves. And obviously, you've heard my points about even R3 with that lawsuit and the NDAs they cannot discuss and how much XRP they perhaps settled upon. Initially, it was a deal to get 5 billion XRP at a discount of like a fraction of a penny, as we've gone over. So we don't know if they did settle for XRP money, how they did. But again, XRP was the first and only digital asset thus far to be named to be able to settle for payments on Corda, which is R3's platform. Isn't that interesting? Another group with Corda that is agnostic. It can send any crypto asset. But XRP was another one named. Almost sounds like the public-private. And then when we go to R3, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms. R3, well, yeah, they can do settlement, and Swift has issues with settlement, and they have Swift GPI, which is essentially X-Currents technology. They can do the messaging, clearing, reconciliation, blah, blah, blah. But then Swift teamed up with R3, and now they integrated Corda for settlement. And people say, no, that'll never happen. Well, I mean, you've heard R3 CEO and the former CEO of Swift, Godfried Lebrant, literally say this, like in articles and videos. So I'm just going to be following the real news, and we can agree to disagree. All right? So just listen up to this clip.
There's a lot that's already started and underway around tokenization of money, tokenization of value, tokenization of securities, the exchange of the two. So we are seeing it already. The exciting part is to now be able to swap in the actual CBDC token.
So I'm curious what he means with actually swapping in this central bank digital currency token. I'm not sure if he slipped there. Maybe it has something to do with their roadmap. I'm not entirely sure. I just want a little more context.
And the actual CBDC token for the exciting part is to now be able to swap in the actual CBDC token for what we've been using so far. There's
all right. So again, seems like they're on the way for this digital dollar. I don't know if XRP or the XRP ledger will have anything to do with the digital dollar. What I want to kind of preface though, and it obviously has a likelihood to do so. I just want to preface with the groups that are working on it. Accenture with DLT specifically. Christopher Giancarlo. The connections are absolutely there, and that's all. All right. So Chris, again, Giancarlo mentions Internet of Value. It's the same talking points that Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, all of these guys have been using for quite some time. And if you look at documentaries of the the .com bubble, you'll actually see how they say democratizing information, level playing field. Well, what are the talking points for Ripple? Internet of Value, level playing field, democratizing finance. Inclusion overall. Instead of, availability to data, this is availability to value anywhere, anytime. Just makes you go, all right? Now, there's going to be many projects. I just want to emphasize, and obviously I think the biggest backing that exists is XRP. And if you guys don't think that this information is interesting or, backs any type of claims, and this is still 100% speculation, that's fine, because there are hundreds of videos out there with way more. I don't have the time to cover all of it. I try to put out a video a day if I have time, and so be it. All right. So right here, banking.senate.gov. Again, Internet of Value highlighted below. And this is, again, testimony of Christopher Giancarlo. All right. So we can see Internet of Value, the next wave. Internet of Value instantaneously from person to person without central validators. Again, disintermediation, no middleman. All right. And you already understand the value this has for everyday people, content creators, musicians, anyone really. But that whole concept of middlemen, if you guys studied economics, you'll understand that this type of intermediary was absolutely necessary, but now it's society swinging back that pendulum. Again, ones and zeros, well, we swing back and forth between that all the time. So we're going to see that wave again, where it goes from we're relatively centralized, now our tendencies are going a little more distributed and decentralized, just like these businesses that are killing it now, like Airbnb, like Uber, like eBay. They don't own anything. They just provide the service. All right. Airbnb doesn't own the homes. Uber doesn't own the vehicles. eBay does not own the products. eBay just provides a marketplace. Same thing with Facebook Marketplace. We are flipping these models on their heads, and that is exactly what blockchain, distributed ledger tech is going to do. So I'm going to repeat this again. I've said this before, but again, newcomers are always coming to this channel. So with stocks, we initially had this internet, okay? We had companies that built applications, like Microsoft Suites and things of that nature, Excel, whatever. And then businesses are building, softwares, additional softwares like that and applications. The businesses do well. They break up their valuations with, shares and stocks. When the company does well, the stocks go up. Everyone can invest in the stocks. Well, with blockchain in particular, now we have the protocols. So they're kind of like packets, IP packets of data. And everyone can obviously buy them because it's open sourced entirely. And it has to be for this to actually function for financial inclusion, for trust, you name it. And there's going to be, of course, some closed databases that always exist. But what's happening is now everyday people like you and me, retail investors, businesses, doesn't matter, anybody, anywhere, can buy these open source protocols. And we're essentially betting in the future that there will not only be successful applications on them, but that businesses, institutions, or even everyday people will utilize these applications. The more that they're utilizing these applications that are built upon these protocols or blockchains or DLT networks, the more that this asset or potentially cryptocurrency will be used, whether it's for, gas, whether it's for transactions, whether it's for staking, anything like that. And that'll basically bring the price of this up. All right. It's much more than just a store of value narrative. This is based off of utility, period. That is all I care about. All right. And from a fundamental level, that's what we're seeing. All right. Man, this information, it just goes very deep, guys. There's too much information to go through. So obviously, continue watching other channels as well. Continue doing your own reading and go back to some of the old videos. I'm talking 2015 of, literally even just PowerPoints and hearing some guys from Ripple, Hyperledger, in like 2017. Go to those guys and listen to what they're saying and then see what's developed. People call it speculation, but time and time again, some researchers in this community have made predictions. Everyone calls them an idiot. And then boom, we're connected. We're integrated. There's a partnership. And we already saw it. Period. It happens every time. All right. Again, even right here, remember the Central Bank Summit Ripple hosted in 2017, the one where the International Monetary Fund presentation opened up the summit right there. And again, he even shows it on imf.org. Presentation at Ripple hosted Central Bank Summit 2017. Just all right in front of you guys. Again, feel free to pause the screen and read this if you'd like. I'm going to keep moving here. Even Anders Lundberg, again, great YouTube channel, Anders Lundberg, for, 2-minute quick videos with Ripple and XRP and kind of tying back some things. Healthy speculation, obviously. Take it with your grain of salt. But to me, I think this guy's rather logical, very smart. So I think that's why Bob Way, again, one of the original Ripple employees, focused so much on talking about central banks along with atomic settlement. I agree. I think the focus is still on central banks. Of course, kind of now this push towards us is on-demand liquidity. And I think on-demand liquidity is very important. It is definitely a stepping stone for XRP. If you think that that is all XRP is destined to be for, I would have to politely disagree with you. All right. Again, even Mickey B. Fresh, totally agree. Just find it strange that Ripple deletes PDFs like this that mention central banks issuing central bank digital currencies on Ripple's network. The biggest takeaway for me is Ripple was focusing central banks and regulators 5 years ago and working with Accenture, who's leading the digital dollar. Boom. Exactly. All right. So what else? So we have additional news. Obviously, MoneyGram, we know that Ripple owns roughly 8 to 10% of a stake in MoneyGram. They announced a 106% year-over-year digital transaction growth in June and the expansion of digital transfer services to Iceland. Well, what does that have to do with Iceland? Well, just off memory, I know we have the Logos network acquisition for DeFi for Ripple and Spring and all of those groups. And of course, PayID, the people in the white paper were basically Strata Labs, Logos, and then of course Spring. So PayID is literally by Ripple entirely. We can see right here. So CoinDesk, again, remember Ripple expanded. This was back in September of 2019, roughly a year ago. And yes, I'm tying it in. People get so upset when I read old articles. But again, you have to connect the dots and you have to do speculation in a speculative market. Those that speculate correctly will walk away rather successful. All right. Ripple is expanding its engineering team and moving into a new geography with the acquisition of Iceland-based crypto trading firm Algorand. So the Algorand team will add 6 engineers to Ripple's ranks with the focus on integration with partner crypto exchanges. The team will work to expand Ripple's cross-border payment corridors and contribute to the ongoing development of the company's on-demand liquidity product. And again, this is Amir Sorhangi, and I'm sorry if I butchered that name, Ripple's VP of products. Again, Ripple did not disclose the financial terms of the acquisition. Right here, it's about expertise. This team hits the ground running as opposed to building out a team that has to gain this knowledge. Exactly. Now, we look at the offices, physical presence in the following cities: Sydney, Sao Paulo, Singapore, Mumbai, London, New York, San Francisco. Well, R3 essentially has an office in every one of these cities as well. I mean, we even know, Tata's a huge conglomerate based out of Mumbai. I just think it's pretty obvious to me. But again, don't take my word for it. Everything I shared here in this video today, go check it. Call me out if I'm wrong. Like, I encourage that. All right. And then again, even MoneyGram, huge group, obviously, kind of right behind Western Union. We know Western Union has trialed XRP. They even actually increased their testing, of course, instead of just sending a few payments. All right. Now they can, with MoneyGram, quickly and affordably sending money in more than 200 countries and territories. Okay, sounds like a lot, but more than 70 countries now digitally enabled. So they have a long way to go in terms of digitization. All right, just wanted to share that. All right, and to finish things off. So Vega, guys, we know, as I talked about in the previous video, creates a novel path to disintermediate liquidity on decentralized exchanges, kind of talking about all of this and, having a central liquidity for these types of ecosystems. I think DeFi is a no-brainer. Is it going to be easy to build? Absolutely not. Is it going to take time? Yeah, and obviously we've been in this market for a little while, but whether you're here for 2 years, 3 years, in the scheme of things, if you were here in the .com bubble in early 2000 and Amazon stock was rather low or even just an IPO, Amazon stock just passed $3,000. And very few people had the foresight to see that being massively successful. If you go back to the early 2000s, you can Google this and it's really funny. You can see people saying, and financial advisors, guys, old-time financial advisors saying, I'm staying away from Apple and Amazon, these internet companies, with like quotes, they are very volatile, very uncertain. Well, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. No, not every company is going to be an Amazon and Apple. That's not fair to compare everyone. But I guess it might be fair for me to politely speculate that Ripple is similar, considering it is a $10 billion valuation, one of the highest private companies to come out of Silicon Valley ever. That's me, and I guess that's healthy speculation in my mind, but I guarantee I'm going to get 100 dislikes on this video and people just disagreeing if I don't go with their ideology, but all love here, all right? So, Vega, again, we know the protocol. I'm going to read this abstract really quick, and I do want you to pay attention to it. Again, essentially, it's a protocol for creating and trading margined financial products on a fully decentralized network. Now, again, this is a Spring investment. This is a Ripple investment. It's all backed by them as well. You can see they're connecting 2 major blockchains for collateral, which can be in any digital asset, including Bitcoin, ERC tokens, anything built on Ethereum. Obviously, guys, I'm bullish on many assets. ADA, VeChain, you name it, and I have been for quite some time. And yes, I do diversify, but one of my biggest holdings is XRP. Now, I've been doing very, very well trading in the past few months, and obviously very excited for the future based off of the fractals I see. I may show more and more TA in the future, just a little, healthy speculation and fun for you guys. And I guess, I don't know, you guys already know about the Vega protocol. I'm kind of sick of talking about it. Again, they have this actual type of abstract you can read, just came out on the 8th, and just talking about the importance of creating this proper liquidity for these markets, the scalability, the fees, incentivizing liquidity providers, obviously all very, very important. But most people, we don't even think about this when we're trading stocks. If you're on, Ameritrade or Vanguard or whatever platforms you use, there's a lot to deal with this project. All right. Right here, just for fun, guys, we'll finish up the video here because I'm sick of hearing myself talk. We have XRP and we have XLM on the right. So this is just a weekly view, just zooming out, looking at the macro perspective. Now, both Mr. Level Up has talked about this for quite some time now, and it is finally happening. And again, even Blockchain Backer pointing out he sees, XRP kind of hitting that 28 cent mark. Now, even before he said that, but he's been saying it for a long time too. I think we can all agree in this market, we all saw this upside. So right here around that February high for XLM, and it has actually a Fibonacci pivot point around what, like 8.2 cents. Well, it blasted right through it finally in kind of a few big candles, all right, within the week. Well, it looks like XRP, that pivot mark, believe it or not, is right around the top of that wick at like 34 cents. All right. Well, we're only at 19 cents or, just under it. So to get there to that actual pivot, if we did decide to blast, is about 70%. Now, why do I rarely show TA with XRP? Because it is one of the most suppressed assets. Some people think that is very bad. To me, based off of my 3 years of research, at least in this market religiously, I see that as a good thing. But you guys can absolutely see it as a negative thing. Obviously, do what's right for you. Go with your gut. Obviously, I'm just trying to be transparent and show you what I believe. Now, if you look at, ADA, or, any other asset for that matter, you can see we blasted right through. We had, it was even right here, one of its points, and now it's already blasting through one of its like R3 pivots. So, it went up to that 13 cent. It's doing a little retrace. Same with VeChain. We're going to see more and more of this, guys. I do believe the bull run's been here. Now, we're just starting to see it in some of these tier 2 and tier 1 projects, and they're all kind of going in different ways, different orders. And of course, people, aren't going to really recognize these patterns. You're still going to look at a TA perspective. And yes, we have cognitive dissonance in this market. When good news comes, all of a sudden the price goes down. It's very, very different than the stock market. I said this a few videos ago, but in all honesty, if you guys want to get ahead in life, you have to think differently and do differently than the masses. All right? Food for thought. Appreciate it, guys. Hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully it wasn't too long or dragged out. Be sure to like this video. Appreciate all of you that share this on Twitter. I always see that. And until the next video, thanks.